grade 9. Yeah, see, my face, I think, is not very clear. I also don't know why it is happening. I'll continue with the session now because I'll be using a PowerPoint presentation. So you all will be only seeing the PowerPoint presentation. I think I have to restart my computer. I faced this problem in my earlier session also, but it's okay now. Let's leave it. Yeah, coming back to our topic, what is there in history? Till now, whatever you studied, grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, all that, it's a summary. It's a summary of all this information in grade 9. Okay. So mostly it is a combination of ancient period and medieval period. All this what you have studied. So in grade 6, you remember you studied about all the ancient civilizations, Harappan, Egyptian, Mesopotamian and all that. So among that, from that, we are going to again study Indus Valley civilization in detail. Then we'll study the Vedic period, the Jainism, Buddhism, Guptas, Mauryas, Cholas. All this you studied in grade 6. So we'll be studying that. In grade 7, you studied about Sultanate, you studied about Mughal period. You know? So all that also we are going to once again study. So it'll be nothing new as such. Only thing, new things you will come to know about the same topics. Okay. The topics are old, but information will be slightly more. Okay. So let us start with Indus Valley civilization. Okay. You can see my presentation, all of you? You're able to see? Yeah. One second. Good. You have to just show thumbs up. Just give me a minute. Okay. 1 second, children. Yeah. So first we begin with this question, what is a civilization? Okay. We are now going to study about ancient civilization. So first we will begin with this. What is the meaning of a civilization? What is the term? What does it mean? Okay. So civilization means, see, we all know that when man was existed on earth, the earliest man, okay, when he existed on earth, right from, we know from the Paleolithic age, the caveman, after the evolution, Darwin's theory, evolution of man and all that, when we became Homo sapiens and when we started living, then the first period was the Paleolithic age. In the Paleolithic age, the man used stone tools, okay, but they were not well defined. They were just rough, they were not sharp, and they did not have many shapes and all that. Just rough stones he used. Then Mesolithic age, when he made better tools, he made smaller. The Paleolithic age stone tools were big in size, whereas Mesolithic he made it smaller, sharper. Okay, and then came the Neolithic age, where the stone tools that he used were really well developed and very useful, all shapes. Okay, uh, for blades for cutting and pointed edge, pointed edges and all, if he wants to make holes. So that kind of different types of tools which are very well defined and very useful for different tasks, he started making. After Neolithic age came the Chalcolithic age. What was Chalcolithic age? That was when, along with stone, he started using metal. And the first metal that was discovered was, what was it? It was copper. So along with stone, he also used copper tools. That was Chalcolithic age. But copper, is a very soft metal and it is not very hard. So you cannot make many things with it. It is not very useful. It will bend. So naturally, he, slowly became more innovative, and then he started mixing some metals and making alloys. So copper and tin he mixed, and then he made bronze. So this is how man started learning many things and progressing. And then early caveman used to be alone. Then he started living in small groups, maybe just his family. And then slowly the need to, live with other people arose. They understood that if they live in groups, they are more protected against wild animals and all. They can be safer. Those started living in bigger groups. Now the big groups became bigger because social interaction increased. They became more active. They enjoyed together, living together, and the benefits of living together were also there. And as the needs of human beings grew, they knew that everything cannot be produced by one person. Okay, I cannot make my own cloth, I cannot grow all the grains and vegetables and everything that I need for my living. And then I cannot be a person who makes my shoes also, my my utensils, everything. If I may, how is it possible that I can do everything? No. So that's when needs grew, but time was less. And even talents, everybody cannot be good at everything. So these were the reasons how division of labor happened. Then said, I will be a cobbler, I will be a tailor, I am a farmer. And this kind of division of labor happened, and different occupations were done by different people. So you are a cobbler and I am a tailor. So we will exchange. You need dress, you come to me, you take dresses, and I will give you shoes. You give me shoes, I will give you dresses, something like that. So exchange. So the barter system developed. But what happened after the barter system? There are many problems in barter system. You all know even more than me. This topic is very clear to you all. In barter system, if we exchange goods, there are so many problems. If I have rice and you have sugar, and I want wheat, but you want rice, but I want wheat, and you have sugar. Now I cannot exchange with you because you're not having wheat. Did you understand? So if you come to me and say, I have sugar, you take my sugar and you give me rice, I may say, no, but I don't want rice, I want wheat. So this kind of problems happened because what you want to exchange, the other person should have the same goods and he also should be willing to exchange. And then if I had a horse, okay, and then you had rice, okay, now one horse is equal to 10 bags of rice. Okay, now I have a horse, now I need 1 bag of rice. How will I exchange with you? I don't want 10 bags of rice. Can I cut my horse into 10 pieces and say, come on, take 1 piece? Can we do that? We can't do. So these were the problems of barter. So then people realize we need a common system. We need something that will be accepted by everyone, a common medium of exchange. And then money came. Okay, moneydom. So when money came, we had first, money was always in coins. It was coin, metals were made into coins, and then everybody exchanged everything for coins. So these problems of barter were overcome. Then as we became more and more civilized, we started developing a script for our language. Okay, so now we can make written records. Earlier, now the ancient civilizations, children, they did not have a script. Okay, they were just beginning to develop a script, you can say. Some of them did have, like Indus Valley people, it's an ancient civilization. It has a script, but it is pictographic. It doesn't have proper letters as such, all, they just drew objects and that only was their script. Fishes, birds, arrows, human beings, stick figures. This is how they communicated when they wanted to write something. So writing system also slowly developed. So what is a civilization? A civilization is said to be advanced if there are cities in it. So if man has started living in bigger groups in cities, and then if there is surplus food because we have used technology, the earliest technology we can think of is the invention of wheel. Okay, so when wheel was invented, it really helped man in so many ways. Okay, not only transportation, wheel was used in so many different machines. It was a pulley, okay, to draw water from wells, or for other things, to lift loads, other things. Everything, everywhere, it became easy because of the wheel. So slowly man started, using his intelligence to make his work less, physically less taxing. Everything they used to do physically. So how to make it easier? So because he is blessed with intelligence, slowly he learned how to innovate and make machines which will help him. So the system of technology, development of technology. Now once you start living in groups, children, do you think that we can live without a government? Can we live in groups without a government? It's not possible, because so many people are there. If all of us have to live harmoniously, we need a leader. We need a leader or a group of people who are looking after the common needs of the whole group, and who are able to exercise authority and say that this is correct and this is not correct. This is the law. Everybody has to follow the law. So for all these things, we need a government. So a civilization is one in which there is a form of government. Okay, any form of government. So when there were tribes and all, tribal Adivasis and all, even there is a small form of government. The tribal leaders are there, Adivasi leaders are there. For their own tribe, they have made rules, and everybody follows the rules. As the groups became bigger, then the system of government also became very complex. Okay, it became big. Then we had kings who were ruling, they were the government. And now we have democracy, and we have elected representatives where we choose our leaders and they rule us. Did you understand? So that is how the government also has evolved. And then division of labor we have covered, system of writing, public buildings. So there has to be, when there is a civilization, there has to be certain places where everybody can use. Okay, public places should be there. Like we have right now, we have no so many public places are there, whether they are parks, whether they are museums. There are many places, which are used for common, for the use of all the people. So all those are public places. So all these things define a civilization. Did you understand what is a civilization now? So civilization means all this should be there, then we say that man is civilized. Now, after all this stone ages, slowly we came, to a period when slowly all this was becoming more and more complex. And by the time 2500 BC came, four major civilizations emerged. But they were: one, Indus Valley civilization in India; another one, Mesopotamian civilization in Europe, eastern, what do you say, eastern part of Europe, you have to say, or West Asia. Okay, where you have Syria, and where we have all this Iran, Iraq. Okay, where present day all these countries are located. That place was called, that was where the Mesopotamian civilization came. And then Chinese civilization in China, and Egyptian civilization in Egypt. These four civilizations are contemporary civilizations. That means at the same time they existed in different parts of the world. Okay, so they had trade relations also among them. Now, all these are called Bronze Age civilizations. I already told you what's a Bronze Age civilization. Bronze Age civilization is when man started extensively using bronze. Bronze is an alloy of copper and tin. Understood? So when you mix copper and tin, you get bronze. So he used bronze more. That is why it is called a Bronze Age civilization. Now coming to what is the origin of Harappan civilization. There are two theories about this. Okay. I'll see if I can move this window somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Okay. There are two theories, children, regarding the origin of Harappan civilization. First one is the foreign origin. What do some of the historians say? Some of the historians say that people who lived in the Indus Valley, they all came from Mesopotamia. They said that Mesopotamian civilization was becoming bigger and bigger, and people were migrating. They wanted new land, they wanted to go, their population was increasing, so they wanted to go to new places, so they started moving, eastward, and they came and they settled on the uh, banks of Indus Valley. But there are another set of historians who disagree with this theory. They say that we don't think that this is true. We think that those who are the Harappans, they are indigenous people. Indigenous people means they are native people who belong to that area only. They have not come from Mesopotamia or something. They have always been living in this area only, and slowly they became more and more modern, and they started having trade relations with other civilizations. They learned from other civilizations, they contributed to other civilizations, they became more and more civilized. Now, why are these historians disagreeing with the foreign origin theory? They have an argument. What do they say? They say, if the Mesopotamian civilization was, if Indus people were Mesopotamians and if they had come from there, they would have followed the same, things that they did, because they are used to one culture. So the same culture we could have seen in the Harappan cities, but that is not what we see. If you see the layout of a city in Mesopotamia, in the center of the city was their temple. They used to believe in gods, and their temple was called ziggurat. Okay, so ziggurat used to be in the center of the city, and the whole city used to develop in a circular fashion around the ziggurat. So this is the ziggurat, then around the ziggurat the whole city developed and became big. But if you see the Indus Valley civilization, it was like a square. It was like a grid pattern. Squares were there. So it was a rectangle. Okay. And even the city was divided into two parts, upper town, lower town, and all that. So they said it is totally different. So we cannot say that the Mesopotamians came and they settled here. Okay. That is how they argued. Now, if you see where did it exist, where was this Indus Valley, then we can see, can you see in the map, children, this is roughly a triangular area, okay? This triangular area, wait, 1 second. 1 minute. Yeah, this triangular area is the place where the Harappan civilization thrived. So if you can see, parts of this part is Jammu and Kashmir, parts of Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab. Punjab was not only in India, it's in Pakistan also. Okay, we have to think of the time when India and Pakistan were not separate entities. So you have to see this. So this whole area was called Punjab. Below Punjab, this whole area is called the Sindh region. Okay, and then left of the Sindh region, this region is the Baluchistan, and above Baluchistan, this area is called Afghanistan. Okay, so Afghanistan, Baluchistan, Sindh, and this is Punjab, and this is Kashmir, and here you have Haryana, then you have Rajasthan, and down you have here Gujarat, and this part of course is Uttar Pradesh, the northern part of Uttar Pradesh. So all this area is the place where you can see remains of the Indus Valley civilization. Okay, now you understood. Now coming to the main centers, or cities where this Harappan civilization was there. Here Chanudaro, you can see this place Chanudaro, here Mohenjo-daro, and here Harappa. Plus here somewhere you had another place called Sukta Gender. Okay, Sukta Gender and Chanudaro, Kot Diji, Mohenjo-daro, Harappa. These are important cities of the Harappan civilization, but they are all located in Pakistan. Currently, they are located in Pakistan. So if you see the cities which are in India, you can see Manda. It is not there and we can't find it on the map, but here in Jammu, we have Manda. Then we have Banavali in Haryana. So Haryana is somewhere here. So there we have Banavali. Kalibangan is pointed in the map. This is Kalibangan. Okay, that's in Rajasthan. And then Lothal here. Can you see in the mouth of the Gulf of Cambay? This is the Gulf of Cambay or Gulf of Khambat. Indian name is Khambat, and the foreigners, the British people used to call it Cambay, Gulf of Cambay. So at the mouth of the Gulf of Cambay is Lothal. Okay, so Lothal, Dholavira is also somewhere here only. That is also another important Harappan city. So Alamgir here, Alamgir, this is in Uttar Pradesh. Banavali, Kalibangan, all these are some important cities which are discovered now through excavations, which were all Harappan cities. Okay. Where shall I move this? Okay. Now coming to the sources. Now this is the most important part, children. How did we come to know about the Harappan civilization? They had a script, but I told you it was a pictographic script. Until today, we have not been able to decipher. We are not able to crack the code. We still don't know which symbol stands for what. So we cannot read the script. Okay, if there is a big inscription and if we see it, we cannot follow anything of that. So we cannot get any information through that. So how did we come to know about it? Only through whatever ruins we found. So there were monuments, there were, seals, all these things. When we excavated, we found a lot of such things. And studying them in great detail, historians have deduced all the information that we know about the civilization. So the very first one is the Great Bath. Okay. Now the Great Bath, children, as you can see in the picture, this is the ruins as we know it today. But if you see in those days, it would have looked like this. This will give you an idea of how beautiful it would have looked in those days. It was a public bath. Public bath means a public, swimming pool. It was like a swimming pool where many people could come and take bath. The shape is rectangular, and then there are two flights of steps, north and the south. There are two flights of steps to get into the pool. And then it was made with baked bricks. You can all see that they have used baked bricks to make this. But we know that bricks, absorb water. So if you put water there, the bricks will start absorbing the water. So all the water will be lost like that. So that is why they wanted to make the pool watertight. Watertight means water should not seep out. So what did they do? They used bitumen and gypsum, and they painted the bricks with bitumen and gypsum so that the water will not go out. Okay. Now, what is this? What do you say? What is bitumen? I can give you an idea. Nowadays, when they lay the roads and all, children, that black tar that is used on top, that only is bitumen. So with bitumen, they line the pool so that the water doesn't escape. How to give water to this pool? From where will the water come? There was an adjacent room in which there was a well, and from the well, the water used to get introduced into the pool. Now that water, there was a system of even introducing hot water or warm water into the pool. They were so smart and so brilliant that they thought of all these things. And then dirty water has to be removed from the pool. So they devised a drainage system whereby all the dirty water will be thrown out and fresh water can be introduced. And then if you see, can you see these are the corridors, children? So all these are the corridors around the whole rectangle around the pool. There were corridors, and opening into these corridors were some rooms. Probably they think, the historians think, probably they use these rooms to change their clothes. And then there is also a flight of steps, and this was a double story, a building. So in the upper story also they found there were rooms. Now historians believe that this was used for ceremonial bathing. Ceremonial bathing means whenever any important occasion is there, before that a ritualistic bath is given. Means a bath is given where all sorts of mantras or something is chanted, and sacred bath. It is a sacred bath. So usually that bath is given to leaders and rulers. Okay. So suppose they are going to appoint a new leader or a king for their tribe. So before the leader becomes a king, he would be given a ceremonial bath. So this great bath was used for ceremonial bathing. Okay, so those who used to conduct this ceremony are priests. So these priests would live in the upper floor. The upper floor, there were rooms, so they felt that maybe the priests used to live there. Okay, now what is the significance? These were the features of the Great Bath. Significance means by seeing the structure, we can make out that they were brilliant architects. Okay, they thought so much about the design of the pool, how to introduce cold water, hot water, how to remove dirty water. And so beautifully they have made the design, and they have lined it with gypsum, and they have lined it with bitumen so that the water is, pool is watertight. So all these things shows that they had great artistic skill. Also, they were very good, architects. And if you have to make such a big structure, you need money. Money means whatever was the money those days. Okay. You need resources, basically. You need resources, and you need people to work. You need people to come together and work on this and build this structure. So this shows that there was a ruling class. That means there was a ruling class which was able to bring together all the people, and it was able to get work done by the people, and that's how the structure got built. Then it also shows, that's what. So the remaining I've already told you. Structural design, and that this pool was used for religious purposes, that is ceremonial bathing. It shows that there was a ruling class, and it also shows the artistic skill of the Harappans. Now, so yeah. Now, the next building that you see is the citadel. Citadel means, children, the town, the Harappan town was divided into two parts. One was raised on a height, and one was on the ground level. This is the ground level, and this is raised. Okay, the ground level town is called the lower town, and the one which is on top is called the citadel. Now, citadel was nothing. What they did, first they 10 feet, they made one big platform of bricks. They made a platform of bricks, and on top of that they built some buildings. That is the citadel. Okay, so the town was divided into two parts, citadel and lower town. So citadel is also one of the features. Okay, one of the features or one of the sources, because we can see citadels in many of the cities which are in the Indus Valley. Okay, all the cities had a citadel. So the citadel is it is built on raised brick platforms. And what was there on the citadel? Important buildings. That means the houses and palaces of the ruling class. Whoever was the chief of the tribe, his house will be very beautiful, ornate, very plush, luxurious. So such a palace, you can say a mini palace, whatever it was in those days.